Joining us now is Gary Byrne. Gary is a former Secret Service agent. He's also the author of the book Crisis of Character. And hey, Gary, good to have you with us, man.
Good morning. How are you?
Never better, Gary. One of the things that you said the other day is why I wanted to have you on, is you said that President Trump's order on Friday basically banning refugees from Syria for 90 days and also these 7 countries that have a very high propensity of harboring and exporting terrorists in the United States, that 120-day ban, you were making the argument that it actually makes the job of Department of Homeland Security officials easier because it brought clarity. Do you want to expand on that?
Sure. What it does is it slows down the process. It's not so much a ban, is it gives them the ability to slow down the process. One of the biggest problems with the federal government is we're so bloated. And I don't mean that at the journeyman level, the worker level, the agents, the officers. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the management and the levels of supervision. You know, quite often in the government, you know, in law enforcement, we hear them say, well, because of this particular thing is so important, jump, you know, if something goes wrong, call me, don't go through the chain of command. Well, if we don't need that much chain of command, you know, during emergencies, we don't need it anytime. So what this does is it slows down the process and lets them vet these people correctly. Because, you know, it's easy to think that because we live in the United States and everything we do from about the time we're born, you know, gets recorded. These people come from places in the Middle East where they don't, not only do they not have running water and they use wells, but they have no record system. I'm not making fun of them. That's just the way they live. And then these wars start, it drives them out. They come here and we don't know who they are.
Well, look, the protests that we had, Gary Byrne, over the weekend and going into Monday and all these people going bananas because a couple people, I think 100 people got detained for a few hours, a handful of them sent back. We have all the sob stories about, you know, somebody that didn't have a cracker for 5 hours or they didn't get their soda pop or whatever they were whining about. Look, what Trump has said from day one is he's going to make America great again and he's going to put America first. America first. It's dumbfounding to me why these Democrats are going crazy over foreigners not allowed to come in the United States or refugees, non-citizens, and yet they don't do anything for their own. There's no crying over Benghazi, those 4 people killed. There's no Chuck Schumer crying over whatever else has gone on with the American worker getting their job shipped overseas as they try to get these people in to get votes. This is the unholy alliance between Republicans looking to take advantage of the international cheap labor slave trade network so they ship everybody in, and Democrats looking for votes. Basically, that's it. Let's get back to Gary Byrne. Gary, there's people going crazy over the fact that 109 people out of 325,000 got detained for a few hours, some of them sent back. I've never seen such outrage. People talking about it's not our values, it's not who we are, it's counter to the American dream. These people aren't even Americans. What is their thinking here?
Yeah, that's the first thing you have to realize is they're not thinking with their heads. These are liberal Democrats, politicians, trying to make the most out of it by appealing to people's hearts. Let's not forget, you know, what happened on September 11th. And the ideal that we've never sent refugees back is completely false. I'm not saying it's always the same thing, but let's they want to bring these refugees in from places where they're at war. We don't know who these people are. And the idea that these are all women and children is complete hogwash. And we don't want to make the mistake of letting in another Muhammad Atta. Let's not forget that we're the country 6 months after we were attacked on 9/11. And what we were told after that attack? Oh, we're investigating from every angle. We are comparing this, we're doing that. We'll find out exactly what happened. But what they didn't do is they didn't figure out that they let 2 of those hijackers that were killed attacking us, they gave them permits to come to stay in the United States as students 6 months after they attacked us. That's why you have to slow this down. You have to shrink. You know, if we can't shrink the government overnight, we have to slow down the process so they get it right. So we don't have those mistakes where we granted two terrorists the permission to stay here as students 6 months after they attacked us. It's insane.
Well, look, the whole thing, Gary, is absolutely ridiculous. But our position is these protests are going to continue unabated regardless of what the issue is.
Right.
They're going to start.
That's right.
They're going to start tomorrow over Neil Gorsuch being nominated. Judge Gorsuch nominated. Then they'll be over tariffs. Then they'll be over this. Then they'll be over, then they'll be over Steve Mnuchin. I mean, it's just going to go on and on and on. And
no, you're 100% right. And there's one thing I'd like to remind your listeners. Here's what it comes down to from my perspective. They're not protesting really those things. What they're protesting is that Hillary Clinton lost the election.
Right.
She was the poorest candidate that any party had ever put forward. And when the truth came out, that's one of the reasons I wrote my book, Crisis of Character, to get the truth out about her. She lost. Now, that's what they're really protesting. So every time you see one of these politicians up there complaining about these refugees, that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is I don't want Trump to be president. And the American people, a good portion of this country, want him to be president because we want him to do these things.
You're exactly right. This is just the crybaby Democratic caucus, as we call them. They still don't understand. And here's the thing, Gary, Byrne, they still don't understand how Trump won. I mean, it is amazing. I go on these talk shows, the CNN or whatever, and you debate these people, and they have no idea what happened on November 8th. They can't understand it. And they're petrified. I tell you the thing, Gary, they're petrified of. They're petrified. They're petrified because Trump is gaining favor with middle-class Americans. Even those that didn't vote for him are looking at him now and saying, hey, this stuff makes sense for me and my family. And the fact that he had second-tier trade union leaders in the White House 5 days ago, he had about 25 of them in there. These aren't the guys at the AFL-CIO and the Teamsters that make $10 million and live in mansions. These are second-level trade union leaders who want their people to get jobs, all right, protect their jobs. They were applauding Trump. It has put the fear of God in the traditional Democratic coalition of dividing people, interest groups, and everything else. Am I right?
No, you're 100% right. And I'd also like to add that one of the reasons they're so upset, and these protests, understand this, these are people that are being paid to do this. This is George Soros and these other Black Lives Matter groups. They're paying these people to do this. When these people get arrested, they're not even. They find out they're not registered voters. They're just paid protesters. They're people who live in their parents' basement and then decided that they're mad about something, or somebody tells them, I'll give you, $100 to go out here and do this. These people, and the ones that aren't that, are professional anarchists. I have dealt with these people many times in my career in the Secret Service, the Air Force, and as an Air Marshal. And the left just can't admit. So they can't admit they lost, because then they have to go back and figure out why they lost. And why they lost is because the Democrats and the Republicans for the last 40 years have been telling us what we want to hear and not doing anything. And now, Mr. Trump, you know what I heard? The most important thing I heard Mr. Trump say last night?
What?
The most important thing. I said this is what I was going to do, and I did it. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. That's what we want to hear. We don't care what party you're from, so to speak, to a certain extent. It's like when you think about the little town you live in. You don't care if there's a Democrat or a Republican that's the local representative. You want your streets clean, your garbage picked up, and you want the public grass cut. That's what he understands. He's going to get it done as a Republican. And is he a strict conservative? No. Is he a man of his word? Absolutely.
That is the disruption in American politics of the status quo. It's what I call a revolution of disruption, because finally you're getting a politician who got elected who is doing exactly what they said they were going to do. And so now everybody's going to be held to that standard. It's going to be interesting to watch. I'm out of time for this segment. I want to thank Gary Byrne for being with us, former Secret Service agent. He's also author of the book Crisis of Character. You can buy that on Amazon. Crisis of Character. Hey, Gary, thanks for being with us, man.